Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Rose Willard. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Hi there, I'm Rose Willard. Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. This is my first time ever interviewing someone on a podcast, so thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm super excited to bring you this interview. Today we have the pleasure of talking with Steve Johnson. I've followed Steve and his Boondockers Bible website for several years now, and he's the one that inspired my husband and I to really learn how to boondock full-time, which gave us the confidence to begin our RV boondocking journey and to initially base our YouTube channel, Reset Your Journey, on boondocking. Steve was a stereotypical computer geek of the 1980s who went on to build a career in the software industry. He began building websites in the 1990s and later quit his software job to work full-time for himself. In 2006, he began traveling across the U.S. on a motorcycle and learned to keep his website business going on the road. In 2012, he and his wife, Sash, began a successful digital marketing firm called Too Much Tina, which focuses on helping small businesses find their target audience through effective branding, creative advertising, and hitting the right marketing channels. In 2013, they started Road Pickle, a YouTube channel and blog focused on motorcycle nomadism. In 2017, they upgraded to an RV and continued the nomad lifestyle, eventually establishing Boondockers Bible, an online guide to boondocking. With that, let's jump into the interview with Steve. Well, Steve, welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm super excited to have you on today because I think your 16 plus years of digital nomad experience and boondocking, all while running an online business, is just awesome and super interesting. Plus, you're my family's boondocking inspiration. So, Steve, please give us a little rundown of who you are and what you're doing today.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Actually it's kind of exciting for me to be on with you and Glenn, because I've been following your channel a lot. I love following other boondockers and watching what they do. Yeah, so my wife and I have been running an online, we've been running a website design business for quite some time. And even before that, I've been building websites and publishing them online and building traffic and, monetizing the traffic. So I've been doing that too. But I think our bread and butter business is really building websites for clients. And I'm the one who builds the websites, and my wife does all the sales and marketing for us. And it's allowed us to free ourselves from the office, and get on the road and do this kind of work wherever we can get internet access. That's largely what's fueled our whole nomadic journey. Originally we started on motorcycles. We had two bikes, and we just packed whatever we could on our bikes and just travel across the country. And mostly we'd stay in like Airbnbs and hotels or stay with friends and family. We'd rent cabins. But a lot of that's more urban kind of stuff, staying in cities. But it still felt like you're just being a nomad. We did that for 3 years. And that was fun, just being on bikes, because, well, number one, I love riding motorcycles, and my wife learned to really like riding motorcycles too. But when you're on bikes, you actually just feel a lot more lightweight. You got less stuff with you, and you're not towing your home behind you. And so it just feels more free in that way. It's more like you've really escaped. Eventually, we moved up to the toy hauler. That was a big change. It is beneficial in that we didn't have to spend so much money on like Airbnbs and hotels, and you could be out of the weather, and you can go boondock and just pretty much pick your hotel wherever you want, just out in the middle of the desert or in the middle of the forest somewhere. And that was pretty cool that way. Although, managing the trailer is another aspect to that. And so there's some trade-offs with that. But overall, it's a great balance between, the nomadic living on a motorcycle versus the nomadic life of a RV.
That's wonderful. Hey, can you tell us about how you transitioned into becoming a nomad, like going from that stationary life to the motorcycles, and kind of what inspired you?
Well, to be honest, my wife and I each have always been nomads. I mean, since we were kids. My dad was in the Navy, and we just moved around a lot. I'd say we probably moved around once every 1 to 2 years. But my wife, on the other hand, she and her family moved probably once every 3 to 4 months. She went to like 23 different public schools, growing up.
Wow.
I think I went to like 8 different schools growing up. And so when you're constantly moving like that, you don't really have the opportunity to put down roots. You don't have the opportunity to really, cement friendships with people. You don't even have the opportunity to collect things. That just becomes ingrained in your blood, as you grow up. You're just used to always moving.
Hmm.
And so when you finally do settle down and you try to stay someplace for, more than a few years, you just start feeling antsy. Like you just got to get out and you got to
Hmm.
get on the road. You got to move and see new places. I think for my wife and I both, when people start to know you really well, it kind of feels a little uncomfortable, just because you're just not used to that. And I come to learn that as I got older, and I was married previously. So with my first wife and I, we had tried staying in the same place for quite a long time. We bought a house in Southern California. And my first wife came from this other way of life where you just always lived in the same place forever, with this big family surrounded by you, which is a lot different from my experience. I tried to transition into that, and it was tough to do. I just kept feeling like I needed to get out and move someplace and just travel. My first wife loved to collect stuff. I mean, almost borderline hoarder. And so that was a tough thing for me to deal with. I mean, eventually it got to where we couldn't stay married anymore. After I divorced, it didn't take too long for me to meet my current wife, Sash. And she came from that same background. She just likes to travel. She was a single mom for a lot of her child raising life, although she had been married to other guys. But when her daughter finally moved out of the house, she kind of was at that point of, like, where's the next thing now at this point? And that's when we met. So we just kind of dated for a while and we got married. We kind of lived in other apartments in San Diego. And then finally we just said, look, well, how about we just get on the road and just travel? Because that's really what I want to do. And she said, yeah, I would love to do that. I said, well, let's do it on motorcycles. And I remember growing up watching Easy Rider.
Hmm.
And, Easy Rider to me, that was like this romance of, getting on a bike and just getting rid of all your stuff and just following the highway and just traveling across the country. Just sleep anywhere you want. You pick up hitchhikers, you just hang out with other people who invite you in and that kind of stuff. And I thought that's the kind of life I think I want to live. And so we decided we would just be on bikes for maybe 6 months and see how it goes. And probably a couple of months went by and we said, at least we want to do this permanently. Forget the 6 months. Let's just do it forever.
Right.
And so we did that for like 3 years, just living on motorcycles, packing whatever stuff we could take on our bikes. And we didn't really take a whole lot. I mean, we probably had like a week's worth of clothing for each of us. We both had our laptops, a couple extra shoes,
Hmm.
some toiletries, and felt really freeing that way to just be with very little and just relying upon yourself was also very liberating too, and
Oh, I
not
bet.
feeling dependent on other people or other things. That felt good too. So I've mentioned my ex-wife. My ex-wife also took possession of our dog, but after a while, her dog got out. I got a call from the local animal shelter where she was at because the dog still had a microchip in him, or in her, I'm sorry. And so they called me because that's who it was registered to. And so I called my ex-wife and said, hey, this dog is sitting in the animal shelter in a cage. You better go get it. And she said, well, I don't want it. You can have it.
Oh,
And of
no.
course, I was kind of stuck at that point because, yeah, I was still attached to that dog.
Of course.
It was our dog. And I didn't want to just leave it in the shelters. I was worried that they would put it down. And, We were just in an Airbnb in San Diego at the time. I went up to the shelter and there the dog was. And so we had to get some help from a friend to drive up there and bring the dog back to our Airbnb. And then we're like, well, what do we do now? We got this dog, we're in Airbnb, we're on motorcycles.
Yeah, how do you travel with the dog?
That was that whole changing moment where we transitioned to the RV.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we got a pickup truck, and then we started looking for trailers. We were committed, to just transitioning into a trailer and keeping the dog with us. But we decided to get a toy hauler so we could keep the bikes. And we just started shopping for toy haulers, and then we got into a toy hauler. We bought one brand new, and that was the beginning of the RV life right there.
That's right. Yeah, I believe you bought an ATC, which I think that's a wonderful boondocking RV. I guess you guys are enjoying it and it works for you on the road, like running your business?
Yeah, we learned about ATC because we were visiting other RV dealerships, just looking at what toy haulers are out there. And we're just complete newbies with respect to RVs. I've been doing a lot of reading online, watching videos, and then going to dealerships, and we're just both walking through them. And of course, I'm reading all this stuff on forums about mold and water getting into the wood. And it
Yeah.
sounded pretty scary. Like, oh my God, like, everyone's getting mold and you got to do all this work to keep the water out. And I'm saying, I don't know about this. I was telling my wife,
Right.
Sash, because I don't know about this. And so somewhere I just got this idea. Well, does anybody make a toy hauler that's just completely made out of like aluminum or something? So I just searched for aluminum made toy hauler and ATC popped up, and it's the aluminum trailer company. I said, hey, take a look at this. It's just completely aluminum. There's no wood. It's not going to rot. It's not even going to rust. It's even
Right.
lighter than, the wood's metal combination trailers. And of course, we were in San Diego at the time. The closest dealership was in Phoenix. So we got on our bikes and we just rode out to Phoenix just so we could see them in person. And we just started walking through them and we thought, we like this. It's definitely more expensive. It's all aluminum.
Right.
But it looks pretty solid. And you go into one of these trailers, you start slamming the cabinetry, slamming the doors, and these things feel solid. And after we've already been to other dealerships going through like, Jayco or Forest River and stuff, and you
Right.
slam the doors and they just feel a little more flimsy.
I totally understand that. We went through that as well.
And I thought, this is it. I think this is our answer right here. And what was interesting is it kind of also coincided with the time that I sold one of my websites. I had a partner named Sheila. Sheila and we'd built this website called Cousin Connect, as well as a second website called Adoptee Connect. And these two websites helped people reconnect with their long lost, brothers or sisters or moms or dads.
Wow. Awesome.
We started it actually in 2001. And it just grew like wildfire, and people were posting queries into it looking for these lost relatives, and it just grew, like blew up. And we were getting all these success stories submitted to us and saying, hey, I found my mom, thank you so much for this website. And we got ancestry.com to advertise on it, so we're making money off it that way. And it was a really big success. And so fast forward to 2012, and we got an offer from another adoption related company, kind of a DNA genealogy company. They wanted to buy it. And we said, yeah, sure. And we were kind of ready at that point, to sell it to someone who could do, bigger and better stuff with it. So we sold it off. $100,000 we got for that site.
Wow.
So we split it 50-50. I got $50,000. My partner Sheila got $50,000. So I had the money at that point, right there, to buy this ATC in cash.
Ah, I see.
So it happened all at the right time. So that's what happened. But we didn't actually buy the trailer at the dealership in Phoenix. We ended up buying it from another ATC dealership up in the Bay Area, California.
Mm-hmm.
We just called it in, told them what options we wanted, and they told us it'll be ready probably like around March or April. We put in the order, I think, in January of 2013, and then it would be ready like March of that year, 2013. So we got the word that it was going to be ready, and we just drove out there with the pickup truck and the dog, picked it up at the factory, and towed it back to San Diego. We put our bikes into it, and what stuff we had, and then that was it. We were off on the road.
That's awesome. So your background, your business background is in that website design, computer stuff. And that's kind of how you were working in that before you started to go on the road full
Yeah.
time. Can you tell me a little bit about that, like transition going from that stationary life to being a nomad and running that website design business on the road?
Sure. Well, I mean, the transitioning of that really is more, it falls really on my wife's lap, Sash.
Right. Okay.
For me, it's just pretty much sitting behind a laptop and building sites. It really doesn't matter where I am.
Right.
But for her, it was really about how do you find clients? And so when we were kind of working in apartments, we would be in San Diego, is where we were in at the time. And so she was going to these business referral network, meetings down there, making
Mm-hmm.
connections. San Diego is this huge convention town. It's got a massive convention center, and there's all kinds of digital marketing related conventions that would go on throughout the year. Social media conventions, website design stuff, you name it. And so there's all kinds of opportunities for her to go out and meet clients. Well, so she did build up a pretty good list of connections by the time we had hit the road. So that helped us a lot, tied us over. But as we got on the road, we started looking for other conventions and meetings that were located in other cities. So we would look at what's going on out in Phoenix or what's going on in Denver, what's going on out in Kansas City, all the way out to the Atlantic coast, as we're doing our travels on motorcycles. And we would just look for what events that she wanted to go to. And we said, okay, we'll just go find an Airbnb in that town and we'll just stay there for a week or two. And that's what she would do. And she'd go out there and meet people. And she's incredibly gifted at being able to socialize and make connections with people. People just gravitate towards her. She's got this kind of bubbly personality that people just find inviting. So that really helps her out a lot doing sales and marketing.
That's awesome.
That's really how we transitioned. She's just a go-getter when it comes to going out and finding clients. She knows how to connect and follow up with people. And she's also got a great knack for timing. After she's already met someone and handed a business card, she seems to know the right time to give them another call and see what they're doing. And so that helps a lot too.
And I bet because of your nomadic lifestyle, that probably opens up, all the opportunities for, leads, clients, business opportunities.
Yeah, she's a firm believer in the old school world of sales and marketing. You got to go to events and meet people in person. You got to shake hands and hand off business cards.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely lacking these days. So I think that's wonderful.
And plus, her own personality and style really adds into that. But she does a lot of stuff online too. I mean, she gets on a lot of Facebook groups, LinkedIn, and she gets on there and just makes connections and socializes. She doesn't do any hard selling on social media. She's just connecting really. And then
Right.
as we would travel around the country, she would say, "Hey, let's go to Boise, Idaho. There's this, woman I've been following on LinkedIn, and it'd be great to meet her." So I'd say, "Okay, let's go to Boise." And we'd go out there and find a place to stay for a while. And my wife, Sash, would go out and do her thing. And I'm just kind of the beneficiary. She would tell me that she's really just pimping me out. I've got all the web design skills, and she just goes out and finds the clients.
You guys are quite the team. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, my husband and I feel like we are quite the team too. We definitely bring great things to the table together. So that's wonderful.
If you got a great spouse, nothing like a great spouse to make a great
Right.
marketing team. I mean,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Not everyone can work together, but those that do, look out, world.
right. Yeah.
It brings me to my next question is what made you want to launch Boondockers Bible?
Um, well, so, by that time we're in our RVing stage, and we had already tried some RV parks very early on when we got our toy hauler. I remember, I mean, the very day we picked up the toy hauler from the factory, I wanted to go to an RV park that had a back end space. And I just
Oh,
forced myself to learn how to back that thing in.
yep.
Of course, it didn't take for us very long to not really like the RV parks because it just felt, I mean,
Oh,
we've been in hotels, Airbnbs already.
right.
It just it didn't seem like a good thing, being that close to other RVs and
Right.
trailers and motorhomes. But we did it.
Right.
We tried it out, and it seemed like
Yeah.
it was a lot of money, to be in some of these RV parks, and
Yeah. Like, especially just for like one night.
especially for one night. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember being in RV parks where you got kids next door and they're trampling on my sewer hose,
Oh,
and I'm looking at my sewer hose and I'm thinking, really,
oh man.
and
They had to pick that.
talking to the parents next door, and they're like, oops, I'm sorry, but they didn't offer to
Oh.
buy me another hose. But anyways, I mean, those little events like that just
Hmm.
eventually made us wanted to find somewhere where we could really spread out and not have neighbors. So yeah, we gave boondocking a try. We were actually it was Anza Borrego Desert State Park in California,
Yeah, I've heard of it.
which is actually where I used to go camping as a kid. My mom and my dad,
Hmm.
we'd go out there, and we had a Chevy van. It was back in the '70s, and we didn't call it boondocking, but we just call it desert camping.
Right.
But that's what we were doing. And I said, I remember going out to Anza Borrego, and I remember as a kid, there's this place out over there, and let's just check the trailer there and see if that place is still there. And sure enough, it's still out there. And like telling my wife, I used to camp here as a kid, in our Chevy van. And here we are boondocking there. And boy, it was really windy too. When we first boondocked there, the winds were just
Hmm.
horrible, and everything was blowing around. Sand, the whole trailer was rocking, and I was
Mm.
still kind of new with the trailer, didn't fully understand how to use like my stabilizer jacks, and didn't know what to do. So, but it was all a good learning experience, and but we still liked it. I mean, we just liked it so much better. And we said at that point, no more RV parks, not even campgrounds, just boondocking. And so that's what we did from that point on. And well, anyway, so how we got into starting Boondockers Bible is, I'd have website design projects, and there's some times when I'm just really busy, where I've got like 2 website design projects I got to work on. I've got other clients that want updates to their sites. But then there's other stretches of time where I got nothing to do.
Ah.
So usually I'd just go outside, I'd sit on a patio chair under the awning and drink a beer, or go
Hmm.
walking around and take my camera and just photograph flowers or something. Then I just thought, I'm just going to build a website. I already know how to build websites. I've built other sites for myself where I've published content and, monetize the content. So I already was familiar with that. I said, let's
Hmm.
just build a site about boondocking, and I'm just going to like write every article I can think of, that anybody would have a question about, and just write like 500 words about it.
Right.
Put in all the keywords, and get it to rank on Google. And I already understood all that, knew how to do it. And
Hmm.
when I started it, it just became a passion to just start writing articles for every question I can think of. And I would sit at my laptop for like morning to midnight, and I could crank out like 5 or 10 articles in a day. Initially, because I had
Wow.
all these questions I knew I could write about. But yeah, as the years went
Right.
on, it'd be kind of harder to find stuff to write about. So right now I'm only doing maybe 1 or 2 articles a week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just took off, and I put up a forum on the website where I just said, "Hey, ask me a question." You know, click on
Right.
this link and just ask me a question, and so it turns out I'm getting some pretty good questions, like questions I would never think about, and it's turned out to be a pretty good source of content for me.
Oh yeah. Any questions that they ask, that's great. Next question. Did you run into any legal or tax issues running your business from the road? Like the web design, all that?
Well, yeah, but so our domicile, at the time was still California.
Mm-hmm.
At some point in time when we had to do our taxes, we would just go back into Southern California. I had a CPA over there.
Right.
Yeah, and for the most part, there wasn't really any big issues with it. A good CPA already knows how to handle those kind of
Right.
situations, and especially if you find one who's really creative. I mean, they
Mhm.
can make any situation legal, basically.
Right. Right. But you actually had to go back, physically to that domicile, correct? To do
Yeah,
all that?
and actually make an appointment with a CPA, go in his office, and just once
Mhm.
a year you'd have to do it. I mean, you don't technically have to, but it really helps to do it. It's hard to kind of do that, over email or over the phone. It helps to just sit down and face to face and be able to answer those questions back and forth. So, but I think if anything, there's any kind of issue, it was paying for gas or writing off the
Mm,
gas or filing for the mileage. So like
okay.
you can't do both, but you can do one or the other. You could file your mileage, which so the time we were doing it, the federal government was paying like 55 cents a mile, for all your
Mm,
travel. And
right.
I think today it's like 62 cents a mile, or you could write off the gas. So when we're traveling on motorcycles, the motorcycles are so fuel efficient, and you could do like between our two bikes, we'd probably average like 50 miles per gallon.
Wow.
This is
Yeah.
back when gas was still, $2 a gallon
Mm,
or less.
mhm.
So it made more sense to file the mileage, and over a year's worth of riding bikes, two bikes. So each bike gets to file its own mileage. I think we'd probably have like 8 or 9,000 miles per bike, I'd say, and just going across the country and back for a year.
Wow.
So you multiply that by times two for two bikes and multiply that times like 55 cents a mile. And it seems like that figure in dollars would wipe out almost all of our tax liability and then give us like a couple $1,000 left over that Uncle Sam would pay us. So that
Mm,
really worked out well. But when we transitioned to the RV and we were boondocking, that completely turned it upside down. So when we were boondocking in the RV, we would find some place where we could stay for like 2 to 4 weeks at a time and try to use as little fuel as possible so as to save money.
mhm.
It no longer made sense to file the mileage because the mileage would be fairly low. So instead, we wrote off the gas because when you're towing a trailer, the pickup truck, you're burning a lot of gas.
Yes. Yes. A lot more.
So if anything, it's that maybe to any listeners out there who's towing an RV, pay for that gasoline with some kind of a business debit card if you got a business checking account or
Mhm.
some
Good
way
point.
to keep all the gas receipts or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're exclusively kind of boondocking like we do. Have you run into any challenges aside from, internet connectivity while running the business on the road?
I mean, yeah, there's a few little things, and business wise, for Sash, my wife. I mean, for her, it's really about finding out where the events are, business events, so that she can meet new clients. And so every time we moved to some place, or she'd look up where's the local chamber of commerce. What business mixers are they doing, and what other conventions are going on. And it's just making sure we're camped somewhere where she could access those places and being able to know what the local business Facebook groups are, or LinkedIn
Mhm.
groups, local LinkedIn groups in that area. And that's really it. I mean, as far as the boondocking versus like being in an RV park, I mean, I don't know that there's really that much difference. I mean, aside from the connectivity, the obvious issue.
Right.
I mean, I can think of some things that are not necessarily entrepreneurial related, like, what do you do with all the
Mhm.
trash, you start accumulating when you're out there for 4 weeks at a time?
Yeah.
I mean, you can drive your trash into town, but, what I wanted to do was try not to drive my truck as little as
Right.
possible to cut on the gas. It's not really because we need the money so much, but it's just because I just hate the idea of driving the truck like 15 miles into town and then 15 miles back
Right.
just for trash. And
It's a little wasteful.
yeah,
Yeah. I get it.
yeah.
I get it. All right. So, another good question. What have you found to be the minimum monthly income for full time for your lifestyle?
Well, so for RV boondocking, there's one period while we were doing this, maybe we were about 6 months into it or 8 months into it. And, I just started asking the question, well, how cheap can we do this? Not
Yeah.
because we needed to, because I just wanted to know, like, how cheap can we do this for just boondocking?
Right.
So we decided to put things to the test. We found I think this is in the winter time. We were like down in the desert, probably like Arizona, and we found a place on BLM land. And our experience on BLM land, even though technically there's a 14-day limit, there's really nobody
Hmm.
out there enforcing it. And no one's telling you to leave, and there's nobody else out there. So it's not like we're taking up space. So we
Right.
just stay out there for like a month at a time, and so let's put this to the test and see how cheap we can do it. And we came out to $500 a month. Yeah,
Wow.
this was like 4 years ago. Okay, so keep that in mind,
Oh, true. True.
right? So this is back when gas was still like $2 a gallon, and you could still get out of
Right.
a grocery store for $100.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, we'd go grocery shopping. We'd check out the clearance rack for the first thing. We look for those dented cans of vegetables and the day old lettuce. We'd look for
Hmm.
that stuff. We'd also buy lots of rice and beans, just the really cheap shelf stable food. That was really the big thing, is
Right.
getting shelf stable food so that you could
Hmm.
store lots of it.
Right.
Yeah, and then you just stay stationary at your space. Our trailer has a built-in generator with its own gas tank, but I would keep like 10 gallons of extra gas in the back of the pickup truck. I had like a couple of extra propane tanks in the back of the pickup truck,
Hmm.
to make sure we
Yeah.
can get through a month. And, it took us a while to master the art of minimizing your black tank, but, like I'd go outside to pee instead of pee in the toilet. So the black tank didn't fill up so fast.
Yep. We know about that. The guys.
If you got to tow your trailer out to dump that tank, well, you're just burning gas.
Right.
And it sounds like I'm a cheapskate, but I didn't do it to be a cheapskate. I just do it because I was curious to see how cheap we could go.
Right. How simple can you live your life? Right.
Just to answer that basic question of how little can you live on. So we came up with $500. That's really roughing it. And I'd say if you want to
Right.
be comfortable, then $1,000. But I'd say for today's prices and prices of food and
Mm,
gas, $1,000 is roughing it. It's
yeah.
probably like $1,500 at this point.
Right. Right. I know for like our family of four that when we are out west and we're boondocking a lot, it's, between food and it's about 2,200 a month. With, that's
Yeah.
everything: diesel, your stay, food, any little entertainment.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure.
But it can be done.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of boondockers out there, or potential boondockers, who
Hmm.
are really interested in that question, particularly now. Maybe if maybe work is harder to find, or maybe
Right.
they just want to be nomads and don't want to be stuck down, at a desk somewhere.
Right.
A lot of people think that when they think about boondocking or living full time on the road, the first question is,
Hmm.
how do I make money? But what
Right.
they really don't think about is, how do I cut my costs?
How can I live on less?
Right. It's not really about how much more money you can make, it's how much less money do you need.
That's great. So, what character traits would you say are the most important or like the most essential for being a digital nomad working on the road?
Character traits, you know what, I'd say it's being patient.
Hmm.
So like when we're boondocking, in an RV out in the desert or the forest, you know, I want to be there for at least a minimum of 2 weeks, maybe up to a month. Because first of all, once we pull into a campsite and we get set up, I need at least a couple of days just for my brain to slow down.
Yeah,
And in order
I
for
get
me
that.
to just do website design work, I got to be in that creative space.
Hmm.
So also, once you pull into a campsite, your mind wants to wander. You want to go out and explore and see what's around you, and so it's hard for me to sit here at my laptop, while at the same time thinking about what's down the road and what's down this trail.
Hmm.
So you just want to go out and do the hiking and drive your truck around and see what's further down the road and get all
Hmm.
that stuff out of the way so you can settle down and feel creative. And then at that point, I usually need at least a week or a week and a half just to feel creative enough to build a website for somebody. And so if you want to be a digital nomad where you're doing that kind of work, either website design or maybe you're doing videos or managing social media accounts for other companies, I
Hmm.
think you need to dedicate yourself at least a week or week and a half or two to just doing that. So that means you want to spend at least a few days to just settle down so you're not distracted and you can do some quality work, for your clients. And then at that point, after a couple of weeks, pack up and move on to the next site. So be patient.
I also really feel like this kind of work where you're working on the road, you're an entrepreneur, your own business. I feel like you need to be really independent. Like you have to be able to be very disciplined and, manage your time and be able to just get that work done without someone else telling you what to do.
Absolutely. But it's nomads are like that anyway. I mean, the
Right.
reason why you're a nomad is because you are that person.
That's
You are an
true.
independent minded person. My first wife was not that way at all. She liked
Hmm.
routine. So
Hmm.
she thrived in a work environment where she could just do routine work. So she worked at a department
Right.
store and she
Hmm.
loved putting out new products on the floor and ringing up cash register. That was good for her and she felt comfortable in that way. So that's why one of the reasons why she didn't want to have to travel so much, because it was taking her out of her routine
Yeah.
and she didn't feel safe being in these unfamiliar places every couple of weeks.
Right. So it may not be for everyone, but that's okay. Oh, another good thing. I think back in 2020, you and Sash, your wife, bought land in Oklahoma. And buying land as a home base is something that my husband and I have talked about a lot on the road. Talk to me about that process of buying land.
Well, sure. Yeah, we bought 5 acres in Oklahoma. It's in the southeastern portion of the state. It's in a rural area. There's a little community called Paler. It's about a little less than 300 people. I mean, it's not really a town center. It's just kind of this sprawled out rural agricultural area. But we're kind of like sandwiched in between three different cattle ranches. But it's not
Hmm.
like these big dusty cattle ranches you see in the
Right.
movies. It's kind of a hilly area, a lot of trees, a lot of oak trees and grasses, and it's actually very pretty. So it was in 2020. So like I'd say January 2020, this is kind of when COVID hit and
Right.
the coronavirus was making news all around the country. And we had a
Right.
lot of questions about what's going to happen with our country and all that. And then you get into a couple months later in March, then, the economy really took a big hit,
Oh,
when
yeah.
reality struck, mandatory masks and school closures. And
Hmm.
it was a scary time.
Right.
And then a few months later, there was the riots, the George Floyd rioting going
Hmm.
around the country and businesses getting looted and burned. And, you add that to it, and it just felt like we didn't know what was going to happen to our country.
Right.
I remember growing up and, my dad telling me that in times of trouble, you buy land. That was his
Hmm.
philosophy. And because land is something that it's yours and it's your place. And as
Right.
long as you have the land, you can grow food on that land. You can, build a house. You can collect
Yep.
rainwater if you want. And,
Yeah.
put up a windmill, I guess, for electricity if you want to go that far, or solar panels. But you can do pretty much anything you want on this homestead and not have to rely on, the utilities or grocery stores. So I remember that, my dad telling me that, and I was telling Sash, I think, maybe we should look for land. And
Yeah.
so my wife is actually a Choctaw native. So she's a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. So she says, "Well, I want to move to my native land." So we started looking for land out here in the Choctaw Nation, and there's a lot of land that's available out here, and it's not that expensive. It's very affordable. And we looked at all kinds of different parcels, ranging from 40 acres down to like 3 acres, and all kinds of different towns and places around the Choctaw Nation. And we finally settled on this place, and it's 5 acres. It has a house on it. So we said, yeah, we like this. It's pretty. I mean, there's some neighbors around, but it's not like there's neighbors right next to you. They're kind of a ways away. So we put a down payment on it, and we just did it. And next thing you know, we're towing our trailer onto this land, and we're cleaning up the house, kind of making some repairs to it, and
Hmm.
we're still living in the trailer, but we finally moved out of the trailer, moved into the house. And ever
Hmm.
since then, the last couple of years, we just kept improving upon the land. We starting to collect rainwater off the roof. I bought
Hmm.
some totes. We've got a greenhouse, so growing vegetables. We got chickens back there.
Oh,
Yeah, it's been a new adventure, and there's a lot of other RVers that have done it. I mean, you mentioned that you and Glenn are thinking about doing it. And we followed
right.
other RV YouTubers who made that transition and documented it on their channel. And we actually
Right.
know other RVing couples personally that have done it. So it's a
Hmm.
thing. So yeah.
Right. Right. And do you guys still consider yourself nomads? Do you still get to travel as much? Do you feel like that land and house like owns you? Like you have to be there more, or is it a great balance?
Well, yeah, we talk about all the time about how the house owns us. But the thing is we still see ourselves as nomads because that's how we were raised. We grew up that way.
Right.
And we still talk about, do we want to sell the land? Do we want to sell this place and get back on the road?
Oh no.
Or yeah, we still have that discussion. And right now we don't. We still want to hold on to this because we still have some doubts about where things are headed. So but we still have the discussion about is it time to sell and move on? And we look at the price of our real estate. It's going up still, although it may be going down. There's a lot more inventory on the market now.
Right.
Yeah, and other friends of ours, RVing friends that have bought land, they tell us the same thing, that as they're working on their property, they're thinking like 5 years down the road. Are they still going to be in it? Do they want to get back into their RV? So it's always going to
Hmm.
be a thing that you'll probably be asking yourselves. And it may be a good question
Right.
for every couple to ask is, when is the time to get back on the road? As opposed to just resigning yourself to living in this house for
Right.
the rest of your life. Probably shouldn't think that way. You should still consider yourself, a nomad that owns a home.
Right. And an entrepreneur and digital or just a nomad and working on the road. It's so much more common these days. Which do you like better, being motorcycle nomads or RV nomads?
Definitely the motorcycling. Yeah, definitely for me, the bike. It's so much more liberating on the bike. So first, just being
Yeah.
on the bike itself, I mean, there's a thing. But if you've never ridden a motorcycle, a lot of motorcyclists refer to car drivers as cagers, because you're kind of in this steel cage that protects you,
Yeah.
from an accident, but it protects you from the weather. But it also isolates you from being able to smell the air, or feel the cool breeze or the warm air. It isolates you from all that. There's just something really nice about that. And then to be able to do it without having to ride back home, where you're just constantly moving down the road, that's just an amazing feeling. Now, it's not a physical feeling. It's just this mental feeling. Like, it's cool to know that I can just pack up and go to the next place wherever it may be. And and then not having that
Yep.
much stuff with you. Like boondocking in our RV, we would tell ourselves that we don't have that much stuff. But if you compare it to being on a bike, you know, yeah, you still have a lot of stuff with the RV. So
That's
it's
right.
just much more liberating that way. And I still have my motorcycle. It's still here with us. And so I
That's
don't want to
great.
give it up because just for
No,
that
don't give it up.
reason, right? Because I just
Right.
keep thinking to myself, I want to maybe go back full circle again and just get back on the bike. And, I rode my bike up to Alaska. This is back in 2010.
Wow.
And that was the most amazing adventure. And
I
you'd
bet.
get up there and like you get up as far as Fairbanks and you tell yourself, man, I'm in Fairbanks, man.
Yeah,
You look at a
on a
map,
motorcycle.
you look at the map because I had to go through the Yukon and British Columbia. Man, that's a long
Wow.
way. And you stand back, and I didn't even go all the way up to Dead Horse, which is, what all motorcyclists talk about. You got to go up to Dead Horse, Prudhoe Bay. But I didn't go that far. Yeah, I've got it's sport touring bike. I've got sport touring
Okay.
tires. It's not really meant for riding on,
Yeah, no.
slick, mud roads and stuff. But anyways, I felt it was quite an accomplishment just to get up to Fairbanks. I still kind of want to do that in a way. I mean, it's a rough ride going up to Alaska on bike, but I mean, I
Mhm.
do know of a couple of people that talk about it, and I tell them, you know what? If you're going to commit to riding your bike up to Alaska, I'll go with you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, make it a team effort. That's awesome. So, I mean, it sounds like you love, when you're exploring the country, you really love it on motorcycles, but just in general, what's your favorite thing to do when you are exploring and you're not working on the road?
Well, my wife and I, we like to hike. I know
Mhm.
I watch your videos. You guys are the whole family's out hiking, which I think is cool.
Oh, yeah.
And we like to hike, take pictures of weird flowers or interesting rock formations, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
yeah, I love craft beer, so I like going to craft breweries. So when we make that trip into town, the first thing we got to do is go stop
Mhm.
at the craft brewery, try a
Nice.
few, and then go into Walmart or something and get our groceries. I like doing
Mhm.
that. Sash likes to go to just odd road. I can't think of the term. There's a website that she
Mhm.
goes to. She finds these weird roadside attractions, and like I remember we were camping in Utah out by Zion, and she found this license plate totem pole that was somewhere near St. George, and she just read about it somewhere and she says, let's just go there. And so we went over there and just visited that place. And then she found some other weird roadside attraction. And I can't remember at this point, but that's
That's
what she
great.
likes to do is find these weird roadside attractions. So the two of us, that's what we'll do. We'll go to a craft beer brewery and then we'll go hit up a couple of roadside attractions and we'll call it a day.
So, okay. So, what would be your piece of advice to someone who's aspiring to become a digital nomad or maybe is trying to get into it? Any advice to them kind of just starting out? What would you say to them?
I touched on, don't think so much upon how much money can I make, being a digital nomad, think more about how little do I need, and that'll really change your whole way of thinking. I think people worry too much about where they're going to get their money, and sure you do need money to live, but it changes how you see the world if you see it in terms of how little you need. And I think that will really help you transition into being a digital nomad. There are a lot of digital jobs, digital marketing jobs you can find in just
Right.
places like Fiverr. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but if you can really get under your belt how little you need, then that helps you find the jobs as opposed to just being up worrying about, how am I going to make money? I think being in the right frame of mind or having the right paradigm is really helpful. We meet a lot of people who say, hey, we wish we could do what you guys do. We hear people tell us that all the time. And we understand what they're talking about. And, they want to do it, but they tell themselves that they can't do it.
Right.
Rather than us trying to lecture them of that, yeah, yes, you can do it. If you, we
Hmm.
just kind of nod our heads and say, you know what, just spend some time thinking about, where you're spending your money right now, and
Hmm.
ask yourself if you really need it. Like if your life depended upon it, how much do you really need that? And maybe that'll help you
Right.
prepare and get started before you actually, move out of your apartment or your house.
Hmm. That's a really, really good point. I love it. Well, Steve, I love how you guys just took your passions for riding motorcycles and traveling the country and being more simple and just combine that with your website design business so that you could be nomadic, but also be able to meet your clients in person. And I think that's just a great personal touch. And I bet they love that. And I also, like I said before, being full time nomadic, I feel that really opens up way more business opportunities for you guys. So it's very, very cool. Another quick point is about the boondocking and camping on free public lands without any amenities. And it can be very intimidating to RVers at first. And, we were a bit too, but now our family just absolutely loves it. And boondocking is just such a wonderful experience, especially if you enjoy getting out on the land, being away from a lot of people, and it's free. So I really think it's awesome that you share on your Boondockers Bible website, and it's just great information. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you guys too. But I guess a couple more points to add to what you just said is when you're boondocking out there, it's a great educational experience. When I was a kid, I remember my family going out camping in the desert in Southern California, and my dad took the time to show me the stars up in the sky. Point out the constellations, and he'd point out the little holes in the ground where animals lived. When you're a kid growing up in the city, sometimes that's new to you. You don't really realize that a real animal is living
Right.
in the ground right there. And these things come out at night. And showing me
Mm,
the different plants and how they live in the desert. And so when I was a kid, that just kind of created this sense of wonder in my head. And from there, I just became adventurous. And of course, we were already kind of nomadic. Our family would move every 1 to 2 years, but it created the sense of adventure where I just wanted to see what else is out there and explore and discover new stuff. And I think that's really
right.
missing today with kids. We get a
Yes,
lot of
for
kids, they
sure.
just get stuck on their video game console and they don't go outside
Yep.
and ride their bikes. And I think kids need that.
Yeah, it takes the parents too to get involved. You can't just expect your kids, oh, go outside and you're not out there with them. I truly feel like, initially, anyways, you need to be there and set that good example and be connected to the land again.
Right. And also you had earlier mentioned my wife doing her sales and marketing by meeting people in person. I think that's
I know.
also really missing a lot too with kids today. I'm not sure they develop really good social skills. My wife
Mm,
and I have two grandkids, and I see how they become too dependent on TV and video games. And
yeah,
I kind of, they come out and visit us, and so I want to show them stuff. I want to show them the same things that my dad showed me, like the stars, constellations, showing
right.
them how the animals live in the ground, and these nuts that fall off the trees like acorns, and squirrels
Mhm.
eat those acorns. The woodpecker comes over and picks up an acorn and puts it into the tree, and you know they don't get it, and I even told him, you see that woodpecker on the tree over there? You see him? He's got that red head and that black body. Well, that's just like that cartoon woodpecker.
Oh, yeah.
And they would say, "Oh, yeah." And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"It's Woody Woodpecker. That's a woodpecker.
Mhm.
You see how Woody Woodpecker hits his
Oh,
nose on the
man.
tree?" And they make that
Oh,
connection, and schools
right.
aren't teaching them that stuff.
No.
So it's really up to the parents and the grandparents to teach kids those
Mhm.
things. And what better way to do that by going camping out in the
That's
woods,
right.
out in the canyons and all that, and actually showing them that stuff. And your kids will remember that. It's such a huge
Oh my
impression.
gosh.
They're going to remember
Yes.
that, and then they're going to take their kids out camping too. And
Yes.
so yeah.
I am hoping. Yes. Yeah. They love being outside. So, Steve, If someone wants to learn more about your digital nomadism journey, your website design business, or how to boondock, where can they reach out to you or find more information?
Well, you can just go to boondockersbible.com, or you could visit our own travel blog. It was roadpickle.com. You can always click on the contact link and, you find our email address, phone number on there. You're always welcome to shoot us a line. The web design business, well, there's toomuchtina.com. That's actually our parent company's name.
Mm-hmm.
But the website design business we call choctawwebsites.com. So we're kind
Okay.
of now,
Awesome.
my wife's marketing the website design specifically to the Choctaw Nation, the local businesses around here. But there's that. So there's toomuchtina.com, choctawwebsites.com. Go there, check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is great, Steve. Steve, this has been very enlightening, and I really want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. I just appreciate you taking us through almost every aspect of your journey, and I'll be sure to put all those links in the show notes. So thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to come on and join you on this podcast. Now that you're doing the podcast, I'm going to be following you guys on this place as well.
Oh, that's great. All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Steve. No lie, I was a little nervous at first, but I had so much fun and I can't wait to bring you more entrepreneur guests. Steve made a really good point about worrying less about the size of the income and more about eliminating what you don't need. It's so easy to get wrapped up in how much money one can or should make. And his philosophy is what my family and I have learned to do on our RV journey. I can't wait to meet Steve and his wife on the road someday. They seem like very cool people. Be sure to join the RV Entrepreneur group on Facebook and let us know what you're currently working on. You can find us at the rventrepreneur.com/Facebook group. While I won't be with you on the next episode, I'll be sure to join you at the end of January. Again, friends, thanks for listening and happy trails.